Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR Saints, your home for daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Please subscribe, smash the like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And our content this football season is presented by BetUS. Score a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. Enjoy the video. Who dat? Well, this will be an exercise in futility, but they're going to play it because the schedule says they have to. Saints and Panthers Sunday there in Charlotte. Our buddy Julian Council is good enough to join us. You can catch him Locked On Panthers every single day. Hey, man, how are you?
Good, Matt. And you're right, an exercise of futility. It's changed a lot since week one, at least for the Saints. For the Panthers, not so much.
Dave Canales announced that Bryce Young is going to start the game Sunday. Reaction to that decision?
Not surprising. He did say he's going to err on the side of caution with Andy Dalton, who was a full participant on practice on Wednesday and was out there throwing. So people were wondering, was he really going back to Bryce to keep seeing more of Bryce, or was Andy Dalton ready to go? And Dave said, I just want to give Bryce another week and give Andy, who was in an accident 8 days ago, that thumb injury, another week to get healed up before making whatever long-term decision for the rest of the season. I think it's the right decision, at least for this week. And I really think Bryce Young should be playing moving forward. The team's 1-7. They traded up to get Bryce Young 18 months ago. Andy Dalton hasn't really been that great. The team's not winning with him anyways, and he's a free agent after this year. The Panthers should be working to improve Bryce Young and to continue to see that development around what is now going to be a younger receiving core. Now Deontay Johnson's not around. That should be their focus for the final 9 games of the season, not going back to Andy Dalton to, I guess, have the guys that were trying to win games every week when it doesn't really matter whether they win or not at this point in time. So it's interesting that Bryce can get another shot, but it feels like whenever Andy's ready to go, that Dave Canales is likely going to go back to him.
What did you notice any difference with Bryce Young in the week 8 game against Denver as opposed to what you saw earlier in the season from Bryce Young?
I think he made decisions a lot quicker in that game on Sunday, was not nearly as jittery. We saw the jump pass in week 2 against the Chargers, and that was certainly a red flag. And him not just trusting the pocket, I felt like he did that. And the Panthers offensive line is a unit that has improved this season from what we saw last year, where there was a shell of themselves. They had a bunch of different guys in there at guard and even at tackle throughout the season, where I think Bryce Young still had some scar tissue from that, and not able to trust that and play fast in the first 2 weeks is, I think, a big reason why Dave Canales moved on from him. But on Sunday, Dave even pointed this out. He felt like Bryce looked like a completely different quarterback in that area. Now, he's pretty rusty, though. They had 2 delay of game penalties on the same series, something I haven't seen in a while, especially at the NFL level. That operationally wasn't great for Carolina. He still had 2 interceptions. The opening game script was good, but that's also a scripted drive. And it didn't seem like Canales was willing to open up the offense until they were already down 21-7 in the third quarter, then again in garbage time. So I do wonder how much he trusts in Bryce Young. While he may believe that Bryce Young has at least grown more as far as seeing the game faster, it didn't seem like he had much faith in the quarterback, which certainly is going to be a question in this week 9 matchup of, will he open up things more on Sunday?
We'll get right back to the video, but always our pleasure to remind you this football season about our partners at BetUS. And right now, they're offering you a 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use the promo code YouTube150. Let me show you how easy it is to use BetUS. Let's make our bets for this week. If you go to the homepage there, you can click on football, You'll see the NFL odds for week 9. We know the Saints are going to play at noon against Carolina, so one of the first games there in that noon Central to 1 Eastern window. Saints all the way up to 7. And you know what? As crazy as it sounds, I'm going to lay it. Carolina has been awful. They have no defense. Saints should be getting Derek Carr back this week. You come over here to the risk window. How much do we want to risk? Let's say $25. We'll tap place my bet. It'll ask me to confirm. Tap, and just like that, we are locked in. There's my confirmation slip. $25 on the Saints to cover 7. May God be with me. And we do it all easily over at BetUS. Remember, a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150. Now, enjoy the rest of the video. What was the reaction to trading Deontay Johnson?
I think a lot of people are surprised by the lack of return. I do believe Mike Kay, the Charlotte Observer, brought up a pretty good point. Pittsburgh effectively traded away for a 6th-round pick back in the spring to Carolina. Like, they gave him away. So Carolina was not going to get that much more than what Pittsburgh got, considering Deontay Johnson had 3 good games, been on the injury report the last couple of weeks, and everyone knew that the Panthers were shopping him. It wasn't like they had a ton of leverage at this point in time. And right now, looking at it, they've only moved up 18 spots as they did the pick swap from the 6th-round pick that they had to the 5th-round pick that Baltimore had. And they can thank the 8 compensatory picks there at the end of the 5th round for even being where they're at right now. But looking at Baltimore, at the end of the day, that's going to be maybe moving up 10, 15 spots, which isn't that exciting. But clearly, when you think about things, if they're willing to move on for basically peanuts, they didn't want this guy around. And it should not surprise people. If Mike Tomlin's done with you, then you're probably the problem. Le'Veon Bell was the problem. Antonio Brown was the problem. Chase Claypool's the problem. None of those guys went on to have success in their other spots. And Deontay Johnson, while he had a couple of good games, was somebody who was pretty clearly a pain in the ass to the coaching staff, and they were ready to move on, as they have some younger guys like Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker that they'd rather have out there who actually would like to practice and contribute to the team, unlike a guy in Johnson who was always a rental for Carolina anyways.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Legette and Coker. I mean, I look at Carolina, Julian, and I see, man, McCaffrey, DJ Moore, now Johnson, Burns on the defensive side. Like, they're fire sailing the roster, which some Saints fans want to see done here. But so who is left there offensively? Like, who are the playmakers on this team?
That's a great question. The hope is Xavier Legette can be a playmaker. He has 3 touchdowns so far this season, had another one on Sunday on that opening drive. The issue with him is he's had some drops. Said last week he lost one in the sun. I don't really care, man. You got to find a way to catch the ball. And there's a game earlier this season against Cincinnati where he killed a couple of drives because he couldn't catch it. Now is a game where if he's able to make those catches, maybe Carolina is in a situation to actually win against Joe Burrow and the Bengals that afternoon. So he has had his moments, but still rookie ups and downs. Jalen Coker, he's not been a revelation, but it's pretty surprising when you look at some of the PFF numbers for whatever that's worth, that this guy has been the highest graded player on offense the last 2 weeks as an undrafted free agent at a Holy Cross. And there's been comparisons that Dave Canales made of him today of Jermaine Kearse, a guy who spent time within Seattle, who was University of Washington player, who was undrafted and turned out to be a pretty good role player for that team for a while when they were winning some games with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson and going to Super Bowl. So those guys are the ones they're looking at as playmakers. Jonathan Brooks, he should be returning at some point in time soon. He's a full participant on Wednesday, but he's still getting back from that ACL. Chuba Hubbard, probably the easiest answer to say is playmaker to run game, and maybe even Adam Thielen. There just aren't those guys you look at and think of dynamic playmakers in the same light of Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. And you even look on the defensive side of the ball, like you mentioned, Brian Burns. They don't have those kind of dudes, at least, who are healthy right now on offense or really on defense.
Julian Council, Locked On Panthers. You can get him at Julian Council on Twitter, X. Look, I mean, for all the questions we can have about the offense in Carolina, I mean, the defense is allowing 35 points a game. I mean, how does an NFL defense get to the point where they're allowing 35 points a game?
You got the roster from the talent perspective. Brian Burns is a much better player than Jadeveon Clowney. I'm sorry, but Clowney at this point in time, his career 11 ends is just a name. He had 9.5 sacks last year in Baltimore. Like, everyone had a great season in Baltimore, and it wasn't like the Ravens were begging to bring him back. Carolina gave this man $20 million guaranteed, which is the most anyone has ever given him guaranteed in his career since leaving Houston. He's played with the Browns. He's played with the Titans. He's played in Seattle. He's played in Baltimore, now here in Carolina. He's been a career journeyman. This has never been the guy that we thought he was going to be coming out of South Carolina, and they decided they would rather give him the most money he's ever received in free agency instead of playing Brian Burns, who's a homegrown talent, who did all the right things on and off the field. I get it, 30 mil is a lot, but that's the price for a player like Brian Burns. So they got worse. as far as edge rushers, they haven't had DJ Wonnum. He had a blood clot back in the spring. He's still working his way back. They expected him to be someone who could help him out. So not having him out there certainly helps, does not help at all. And I mean, Derek Brown's injured. Shaq Thompson, he's injured. Those are two of your best defensive players. J.C. Horn, he's done his job. But, Matt, do you even know any of these guys? Like Charles Harris, are you aware of who this man is? Trevin Wallace is a rookie they're playing. They got Mike Jackson at corner. They have Xavier Woods. They have Nick Scott. Like, there's a bunch of no-names, so the talent level is not there. And also, they're all banged up. So when you got a bunch of no-names playing for you on defense and your better actual name players who only one of them is even a Pro Bowler and Derek Brown aren't playing, this is what you get.
Mike Jackson, bro, he did Thriller. What are you talking about?
Nah, wrong guy.
All right, so look, the Saints stink, and they're a touchdown favorite, and that doesn't even sound crazy for how bad Carolina is. Do you think, aside from the fact that it's just the NFL and there's like the any given Sunday component here, like what is the path for Carolina on Sunday?
Bro, they haven't even played a one-possession game all season long.
I know.
Dude,
I laid 11 with Denver last week and had no problem doing it. I'm like, I've seen Carolina play defense. Everyone is going to beat them by 2 touchdowns.
And you've seen Bo Nix's career from the very beginning.
Right?
So it's just insane. Like they in the NFL where like you're so used to watching in college have these massive lines. In the NFL, you don't see that. If you ever see a double-digit line, or even last week it was 9.5 against Denver for Carolina, like that's something where that team is terrible. You don't see those things. And it's just hilarious that through 8 games, they still have not played a one-possession game because they also blew out the Raiders when they played them. I guess the path to victory for Carolina is Dave Canales actually showing some faith in his quarterback, which I don't believe he has any in Bryce Young. I don't care what he says. We see how he calls players for Bryce. We see how he calls plays for Andy Dalton. They don't take shots. They're going to have to take some shots against Orleans on Sunday to try and loosen them up if they want to be able to run the football like they have been able effectively when Dalton's been out there. Like they're averaging 124 yards on the ground with Andy Dalton and only 72 with Bryce Young, because they don't want to stretch the field. And also the quarterback play with Bryce in there hasn't been great, but it's not like he gave Bryce much of a chance. We got 3rd down and 14. He's throwing a quick pass. Like that's the call. Like there aren't any routes developing past the sticks. So I don't really know what it is other than the coach just does not believe in the quarterback. So you got to open up things. Takeaways have been an issue. They had 2 last week, shockingly, in a game, but they still lost. If they can take the ball away, whether Derek Carr plays, but especially if it's Spencer Rattler, that's a path to victory. But really, let's just have a path to having a 1-score game.
I mean, sometimes perspective matters. Okay, last thing. Does Carolina want to? I'm not going to use the tank word, but do they want to win the game?
Yeah, I think the owner wants to win the game for sure. And I'm sure he's pressing buttons behind the scenes. I don't know whether that's why Bryce Young is playing or not. They don't, and we know these guys don't want to actually tank. You got guys like Tommy Trimble last week who they're down 3 scores, and this dude is fighting on 4th down and diving for a 1st down. Like those guys are trying to keep their jobs or at least get jobs elsewhere. For the betterment of the franchise, it would be nice to have the #1 overall pick again. The problem is, look at the quarterbacks that are out there in college. Carson Beck has been god-awful in the 2 marquee games Georgia's played this year. Quinn Ewers has not looked the same since coming back from that oblique. Shador Sanders, he's pretty good. Deion's already said he's pulling a Manning, so I don't think he's coming to Carolina, or I don't know where he's going to go. But there's not like a surefire #1 overall pick quarterback in this draft like there was a year ago, to where the Carolina is going to get a massive haul and find a sucker like they were 2 years ago when Chicago found their sucker in the Panthers. So it would be nice to get #1. I don't think they should be taking anybody. I think they should be trading back and getting more picks in the top 100. So it would be nice over the last month of the season heading into the playoff if someone in college can step up and show that they are that alpha at quarterback and get somebody to be desperate enough to trade up, even though we've seen time and time again that is a terrible decision for your franchise. You give up multiple 1st-round picks just to get 1 player.
I don't know if Chicago found their sucker, if Carolina just drafted the wrong guy. You had C.J. Stroud, we might be having a different conversation.
We might, but this is the Carolina Panthers we're talking about. They would have found a way.
I could have made the same argument about the Houston Texans, and the Panthers in the last decade had an MVP and played in a Super Bowl. So it can happen, bro. I mean, I get it. Trust me. You and I, it's the fan bases. We're all swimming in the same pool right now.
I mean, look, I saw what you said the other day about Mickey Loomis, and
I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm just sitting here cackling. It's like they kept kicking down the can down the road, and I totally get your frustration, but they haven't at least bottomed out like Carolina has, and it's just ownership's the issue here, Matt. That's my whole thing. Even if they drafted CJ, I just don't have belief with the guy who owns the team that they're going to hire the right people, push the right buttons, and actually have success if they truly find that right quarterback.
Well, the pillow fight of maybe the entire NFL season Sunday there in Charlotte. He's Julian Council, Locked On Panthers. Check out his show every single day, however you get podcasts or on YouTube. Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.